security watch today, we do know that in a lot of countries now, you know, including our country, it is now a criminal offense to be found outside without a face mask. And you could be fined, you could even face some jail time if you are caught and prosecuted for that. And, you know, that goes to the security response here in the country amidst a lockdown. And that's actually the topic for today's segment of Security Watch. Our analyst and security consultant, Onyekachi Adekoya, isn't in the studio today, but we're going to be talking with him anyway. So he joins us now live for this discussion so we can deliberate on our response. How good have we fared? Are we doing it right? Is there something lacking or missing? So that's what we are going to be talking about. A very good morning to you, Onyekachi. Thank you for joining us now.
Good morning, Zoe. Good morning to everyone in the studio.
Good morning.
It's good to see you.
I think that the whole world has had to deal with COVID-19 one way or the other. Generally, we all agree that the pandemic perhaps met the world unprepared. So a lot of policies and guidelines were formulated along the lines of trying to grapple with it. So from that standpoint, even response has been very fluid and dynamic based on local exigencies. In this part in Nigeria, if we assess, I think there's no gainsaying, the security forces had already been overstretched by a number of issues, banditry in the northwest, and insurgency in the northeast. We are now seeing even a spillover of the insurgency in the northeast coming into the northwest. And I think it was sometime last year, this current IGP did say that as far as he's concerned, he will classify the armed bandits in the northwest as Boko Haram. Okay, so even enforcement of the interstate lockdown has been very difficult. You then layer that on the fact that Nigerians can be very interesting people. Yes, why the enemy would have good reasons to complain against harassment. Some of us have seen firsthand where people who are not doctors, who are not medical practitioners themselves, or even essential services workers, get on the road and try to at least go about their normal business in pursuit of their daily bread. So that puts some pressure on the security forces, who themselves are not even, they don't have enough manpower. Now, because there's not enough manpower, rotation of personnel has been difficult. In an ideal situation, you should have had these people working for 8 hours rotation, but sometimes they're having to do 12, 18 hours. And again, no reasonable person can work that long and be effective. So generally, we assess the approach as being below average. Constraints are there. We set the constraints as lack of personnel, lack of budget. Of course, you know, the mainstay of the economy has been oil, and the price of oil has tanked, though it's coming up now. But for the good period when the economy was on a serious lockdown, not much was coming in, not even in terms of tax receipts. So if we assess and be fair to the security forces, they've just had to make do with what they have, and some of them working even without PPEs themselves.
Yes. Okay,
so how do you assess them?
The way and manner in which a law enforcement officer accosts me, if he meets me on the way, on the road, trying to do my job.
With every wave of threat, there are opportunities. And within this corridor, this training corridor, a lot of intervention can take place and should take place. We can't leave it to the government alone. So I encourage that NGOs, well-meaning groups of persons can propose training at no cost to the police. And the police that I know, at least at the force headquarters, they are very receptive to any training intervention, because you see, even for the police themselves, what is their training budget? The people who are asking the police to be defunded in America, I think in one of the, maybe in New York or so, I can't really remember this place now, where they've almost taken out $1 billion. And the police chief came out to say, hey, the bulk of that money goes into training. So if you can't train and retrain the policemen, what kind of police are you going to be getting?
Indeed.
In our case, in any case, there's almost zero budget for refresher training and the rest. I dare anyone in the studio there to go to the police station close to your house and see the state and the environment in which we expect them to work and be safe. So while we also expect the best from the police, but as Pastor would always say, sometimes the people get the leadership they also deserve. So maybe we need to begin to also, beyond advocacy, beyond campaign and lending our voices to this discussion, I think that, again, we need to begin to plan intervention in that area. Perhaps only then we can change some of the things. But to answer your question on lockdown, we've had a checkered history with the military. So we have a very strong militaristic approach to language. When you say lockdown, you are not talking about travel restriction. A lockdown will assume that there's an emergency. And in the event that there's an emergency, the executive has a lot of width in use of force and use of state resources to ensure emergency response. And so part of that response is a lockdown. And so when they say lockdown, it's obey the last order. But yes, while they have been doing that, we also see reports, even from SERAP and some people, claiming that the security agencies along the route had been lining up their own pockets. Again, I will stop here so I don't begin to sound like
Thank you so much. You've said so much. You've addressed a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.